Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about the books that I read for the month of March. So basically my March wrap up. I'm trying a whole different angle now and I'm super excited for this little angle because you can see more of my shelves behind me and I'm sitting in a chair as opposed to sitting on the floor, which I enjoy sitting on the floor. That's just my chill out way of being. I love being on the floor, but I figured that this angle would be better because you can see more of my bookshelves behind me. I'll give it a try, I'll see how I'll like it, and see how I feel most comfortable, if on the floor or on the chair. Now that that's out of the way, let's jump into all the books that I read for the month of March. I started the month off so great because I finally got to read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I loved this book. This is a very well-loved book. I mean, everybody has already read this. It's a YA fantasy series, and it always caught my attention because it had to do with a traveling carnival almost in a way. But it's really a place that you go to and you play all these kinds of games, and only one person can win a grand prize. And usually Master Legend is the one that puts up the prize to win. But it's not your usual like carnival games and stuff. There's participants, there's actors, there's consequences for your actions, and so it's a pretty interesting world. I love the visual descriptions of it. The atmosphere was just so good. So in this we have two sisters, and so Scarlett, which is the one that really wants to go to this Caraval place, she has been writing letters to Legend, which is the headmaster or the head of the Caraval place, because you can only show up to Caraval with an invitation. And so she keeps writing to him and keeps writing to him throughout the years until finally one day she gets a response and she gets invited to Caraval. And so the story develops from there. She ends up going, we meet characters. It was just so dark but so whimsical at the same time, and she has to figure out how to get to the end part of Caraval. I don't want to spoil it because those are really big spoilers, but if you haven't read Caraval yet, I highly suggest it. I recommend it. It was just such a good time, and I literally listened to the audiobook like in 2 days. It was just so good, and I love the covers to these books. They're just wonderful. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Next up we have The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This month I read a lot from my book of the month shelf, so I'm super excited about that because that means that those stacks there, which are all my book of the month unread stacks, that's coming down, so that's super exciting. I loved this book so much. This was such a good thriller. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. In this book we follow our main character Libby, and she has been contacted that she has inherited this mansion. But the story behind the mansion is that many years ago a family was found dead in this house, and in this house there was 5 children, a baby and 4 other kids. They found the baby at the house. The baby was crying, and the family, the adults, all the adults in the home were dead in the living room, and this baby was found, but these other 4 kids were never found. And so she goes back to this house. She's inherited this house, and it's just trying to figure out who those people were that were dead, trying to find out the story of what happened there, also the secrets of where are these other kids. So it's just a mix of deliciousness in this book. It was such a fast read. It was so engaging. It was so gripping. I enjoyed following Libby around and just discovering all the lies and all the secrets. It was a very fun time. I read a lot of good books this month, like a lot. I am obsessed with each and every single book. I think that out of all the books that I read, only one of them was But this next book that I'm going to talk about was just incredible. I actually was lucky and blessed enough to get an ARC of it along with the Nightworms readers. We all did a mashup review over on the Nightworms blog. I will link that down below because that is already up. But it was such a fun time, and spoiler alert, we all loved the book. This is one of those times where we all gave this book 5 stars. It is that good. And that is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by none other than Grady Hendrix. As I sit here right now, I wish I could tell you that I've read all his other books. I own Horror Store and I owned My Best Friend's Exorcism, but I have yet to read them. But after reading this book, I can see what the hype is about, his writing and his storytelling. This was an incredible, fun, dark, funny book. It was just so amazing. Here we are following Patricia, and she is a housewife. She lives her normal life with her husband, with her kids, kind of like, you know, boring, kind of routine in the 90s, in the early 90s. And she just wants some adventure in her life. She's part of this book club that really isn't doing much for her. They read like just books that she's really not interested in. She shows up to the book club once and she hadn't even read the book that they were supposed to read, and she was the one that was supposed to be presenting and talking about the book and opening up the discussion for the book. Needless to say, she stops going to that book club because she gets an invitation to another more darker book club that her friends are hosting, where they read more of like true crime books and things like that. And they're having loads of fun. They're actually getting the books read. They're having their discussions. Amidst all of this, there's something going on in their neighborhood. Patricia one day walks out of her house to find her neighbor rummaging, a little old lady that they hadn't seen for a while, rummaging through the garbage and eating a raccoon. And things just start spiraling down from there. This lady has this nephew over. He's young, but he's only seen at night, and just strange things have just started happening since this man arrived in their neighborhood. So Patricia takes it upon herself to get a little spicy in her life and figure out what is going on. She gets in all kinds of troubles. Her friends desert her. There's gossip. There's that 1990s house mom kind of vibe to it. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but you know, he's known in My Best Friend's Exorcism to be in like the 80s kind of a time frame with the music and the movies from there. Again, I haven't read that, but from what I can tell for this one, it's the same thing. It gave me so much nostalgia because it's all about the 90s, and during the 90s I was 10 years old, so I remember the 90s. I love the 90s. Remember the whole like environment as far as like how the 90s moms were, you know, in my friend's home, the gossip, the staying at home moms kind of thing. Following Patricia and all these endeavors, trying to figure out what's going on is just so much fun. There are lines in here where I literally, I mean, I have so many spots like saved here because I don't know if you could see it because of the bright light, but there's so many spots in here where I was just literally laughing out loud. I highly recommend it. I think this book comes out today as I'm filming this video. It's April 7th, and I'm so thankful to Nightworms and to Quirk Books for just giving me the opportunity to review this book alongside some amazing folks. So you guys want to get your hands on this one because it was just incredible. It was a real fun time. Of course, I gave this 5 stars. So as you guys know, I am participating in this Book of the Month backlog reading challenge for the whole entire year, and we have a prompt for each of the months to read all of our Book of the Month books, or not all, but try to get at least 12 books in for the year, because we keep buying Book of the Month books, and at least for me, they're just sitting there, and I keep buying other books and reading those other books. So participating in this challenge has really helped me out dwindle down my pile. And for February, the book that I had set out to read, I could not get to. I just didn't have time to read it, and I moved it over to March. And I am glad to report that I actually did read it. You know, when you just keep just pushing things to the next month and the next month. If you build your TBR, tell me if this happens to you. I build my TBR, and if I don't read that book, if there's a book for a challenge or a read along that I was participating in and I didn't get to read it and I move it to the next month, it's just not gonna get read. If it didn't get read when it was supposed to, I'm most likely it's gonna get pushed back. Are you guys like that too? Because that's what happened with my February book. I had set out to read American Predator, and I am happy to report that it got read along with my March book in March. So really proud of myself. I'm actually on track with that reading challenge. This is by Maureen Callahan. Boy, did this book freak me out. You guys know I always say that true crime really doesn't scare me. Horror books don't scare me. I love reading them. I love that feeling when you're reading them, but they really don't do much for me. This book scared the bejesus out of me, and I don't know why. It's not the worst. I mean, it is. It says, the hunt for the most meticulous serial killer of the 21st century. But I think it's just, I don't know what it was. I can't sit here, I can't pinpoint what it was that scared me about this book, but it freaked me out. It really like impacted me. This is a story about Israel Keys and how they found out all the murders that he committed. He was out there, and the way he was caught was just, I think it's bizarre, because they weren't even, this guy murdered a lot of people, and they really weren't looking for him until this one last murder, and they weren't even aware, to what I can remember, they weren't even aware of anything going on. And so I found that kind of like, wow, that this guy can go this long without even a trace or a hint of anything of what he's done. This girl goes missing in Alaska, and they actually see footage of her while she's working in this coffee kiosk, and they see that she's interacting with this male around the time that she went missing, and they see a male come into the kiosk, and there's a whole bunch of things that happen in the video. You can go ahead and search it. She goes missing, and they can't find her. Finally, they catch this guy, Israel Keys, for, I forgot what he gets stopped for, but lo and behold, he is the one that murdered this girl, and he tells them where they can find her. She's dead, and it just goes from there. This guy murdered people all over the United States. He had kill kits planted in different areas of the United States, ready for when he found his next victim. He would just go get the kill kit, do what he had to do, and that's it. So that is insane to me. It was a scary book. If you haven't read this, it's a short one. I highly recommend it. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. Isn't it kind of weird, like, rating a book that involves an actual murder? Like, I find it weird. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give this 5 stars. He killed all these people and like mutilated them, but let's give it 5 stars. And I know that's not what the book is about. You're actually rating, you know, the research and the writing and the story itself too, but you're not actually rating him per se. Coffee break. I forgot my water, and my throat is getting itchy because I'm talking a lot. You guys, this next book, I'm so excited to talk about it. I'm so excited to include it in my March wrap up. This book tore me apart. It grabbed my emotions. It shook it. It slammed it. It got stomped on. It was just so good. And that is Docile by K.M. Spara. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that last name wrong, but holy moly, was this book amazing. I will start off by saying that this book is not for everyone. This book is very descriptive sexually. It's kind of like a bondage kind of sexual experience. It's very graphic, but it's just so good. I loved it so much. Here we are following 2 characters. We are following Elijah, which is the Docile, and we are following Alex, which is basically the owner of the Docile. And in this world, it is a futuristic America. It is later on in the years, and there's only 2 types of class, let's say it. There are the people that are in debt, and then there are the rich people. And basically they have this program where you can sell yourself as a Docile to the very rich in order to start paying off your debt. And so when you go, there's like this headquarters, and you go there, and basically they put you in a file, and these people start interviewing you, and they pay a certain price for a certain amount of time, and then you're free to go. While you're a Docile though, anything goes, like rape, mistreatment, anything from the good to the bad, slavery. It's pretty bad. And then there's this medication that you have the option of taking that's called docilin, and this puts you in a state where you're just okay with everything. It almost like makes you not feel, and it makes you like responsive in a certain way, like everything is okay, yes, sure, you do everything just merrily. And so Elijah goes and signs himself up. He really doesn't want his sister to go through this because, again, like I said, they get treated pretty badly, and they can be used for sex and all of that. And so he puts his name in the bank, and he gets sold to none other than the son to the owners of docilin. And one thing is that Elisha knows that he does not want to be put on docilin. Like, he's just gonna go in, do what he has to do, withstand whatever he has to withstand, and get out, because his mother was affected by docilin. So it's just that story. It's what Alex and Elijah go through. Alex is actually the son of the owner of docilin, and he buys Elijah, and it's just their story. It's hard to read at times because Elijah gets punished if he does something wrong, if he says something out of line, and he always gets punished, and the punishments are really hard to read. This was very taxing on my emotions. I was crying so much. And I had to put the book down for a couple days and kind of like regroup my emotions and then go back to it. But as I was going back to it, it was almost like I didn't want to. Like, I wanted to because I wanted to find out what happened. But my emotions were like, no, we cannot handle this book. It was that good. I loved it so much. The writing was good. And like I said, this is not going to be for everyone. So don't go into this. I mean, I loved it. I've heard great reviews of it. I've actually buddy read this with my friend Rain. She has a channel. I will link her down below. And another friend of mine, Melly, and we all buddy read this together, and we all loved it. Usually I hear that everybody loves this, but of course you're going to have your people that this is just not going to go down right with. I mean, there are pretty harsh punishments. There is mistreatment of another human being that just is in that position because they don't have money. So it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but really, really good. Again, I gave this 5 stars, and I highly recommend it. If you can handle it, I highly recommend it. Coming up to the book that really I had high expectations for, but really didn't wow me like I thought it would, and that is the Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I have had to thank God because I had been pronouncing this name wrong. I don't know why I've been saying Simon. There's an E back there. One day I was just looking at the cover and I'm like, Marcella, that does not say Simon. It says Simone. So there you go. The Sundown Motel. I had such high hopes for this one. There's so many people that love this one. I know that The Broken Girls is raved about. I actually do own that one as well, and I need to get to it. I buddy read this. I started buddy reading this with my friend Tav, but she just wanted to read it right away and she read it, which is fine. I understand that. I can relate to that so hard. And then I picked up a buddy read with my friend Tali. I will link her Instagram down below, but we read this together. She really liked it. While it was a good book, it was good. To me, it wasn't like a wow. Like, everybody thinks this is such a wow book, and to me it was okay. It was entertaining. It was fast-paced. It's a mystery, so that part of it was engaging and good. And there is it's almost, you know, you read a mystery and you're like, okay, it's a mystery, but this is like a mystery intertwined with almost like horror-ish kind of tropes. And that made it really good. It made it like a really dark mystery. Here we are following 2 timelines in the same place. So it's upstate New York in 1982 and then upstate New York in 2017 at this motel. In 1982, Viv goes to work at this motel, but there are strange things happening, and she is like very curious to find out what's going on. There's like lights that flicker, there's doors that open and close, there's just weird happenings, there's like ghosty things happening. And so she one day goes missing. She just gets wiped off from the face of the earth and nobody sees her again. Come 2017, her niece is very captivated by her story. Her mom really never wanted to talk about it, and it almost was like her Viv was like a subject, like a taboo subject. Like you couldn't talk about her because her mom was shut down. And so they just never spoke about Viv. But she's always been very curious. She ends up going, she wants to research she wants to see if she can find out what happened to her aunt. So she goes to this place. She ends up working at the Sundown motel as well. And it's just a story of her trying to find out what happens. So like I said, this has to do with like ghosts and stuff, like a haunted motel. So it does have those horror elements, but to me it was just a very dark mystery. And it did its job of entertaining. It was a good story. It had its twists and turns, which made it good. But to me, it was just that. It was just a good book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It's a very short book, so it's okay. It's just a book that you pick up, read, oh, okay, that was a good one, and you just put it down and sort of like not talk about it again, other than this cover. This cover is like bomb, bomb, bomb. So we're down to the last 2 books of the month, which is super exciting. Next up is The Fourth Hoard by Evie Knight. This was a wild book. This was another book party with the Nightworms for the blog. We all reviewed this for the blog, and this one had mixed reviews. Not all of us liked this one. I really enjoyed this. This was dark. This was weird. This was gross. It was graphic. It was just so amazing. There's so many things that captivated me about this book. This is told almost in biblical formats, and we have death, we have Lucifer, we have demons, we have the creator, and just the creativity behind this book just baffled me. I know that this is not going to be a lot of people's cup of tea, to me, because I am a believer and I do read the Bible and I know that format and I know the storyline. I mean, everybody knows the story of the creation of life, of the world. Whether you believe it or not, you know the story. You've heard the story somewhere. And this is just a big twist on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And so I had such a fun time reading this. We are following this girl, Kenzie, and she just has a very hard life. Her mom is a drug addict. She didn't have the best upbringing. While she was little, her brother dies in an accident, and she was supposed to be right next to him when this accident happened, but something appears before the accident happens and it makes her stay back in confusion or in amazement, and she sees her brother get run over. And so the story goes from there. She grows up, her dad left her, she has a drug addict mom, she's trying to manage everything in her life. They don't live in a very good neighborhood, and so it's just a story of her and how she becomes part of this grand scheme of involving herself with death and Lucifer. And so it was such a weird book. This is just a book, I went into this blind, so I'm like, The Fourth Hoard, okay, let's go for it. I didn't expect everything that I got from this book. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I will link our mashup reviews for the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and such a long title, and also to this book. I will link those direct blog posts down below so that you can check out what everybody thought about it, because not everybody liked it, but I absolutely loved it. The last and final book in my March wrap up is a pretty big puppy, and this was part of the Book of the Month backlog reading challenge. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, but let's just go with that. And it was so good. The prompt was to read your biggest or your largest Book of the Month book. And this is one that I was hesitating because I'm like, it is such a big beast that I don't know, and I had heard so many mixed reviews on it. A lot of people didn't like it because they found it boring, but boy, did I love this book so much. I just realized I didn't close it down in my Goodreads. I'm like, The Fourth Hoard wasn't the last book I read. I read this other book, and I never I finished reading it on Goodreads. So I don't know where I was sitting with the rating for it when I finished it. All I know is that I'm gonna give this 5 stars, and it was the Goldfinch. It was the Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This is a behemoth of a book. And like I said, I was intimidated by it because this is not my usual genre. I've been slouched down like this the whole entire time. This is not my usual genre. It is considered a modern classic. I've never read anything by Donna Tartt before, so I went into it very, very guarded and very hesitant. But this book just swept me off my feet. The story is just so incredible. This is the type of book that you need to like the art of storytelling. Donna Tartt has a way with words. She just created this world and it just flows so seamlessly. It's such a gripping and like heartfelt story. Here we follow Theo, and he loses his mom to an accident one day in a museum. She dies, and his dad actually had left them I think it was like 6 months to a year prior to her mom's death, so he was still trying to get over the abandonment of his dad, and then his mom dies and he sort of doesn't have any relatives to go to. His grandparents really aren't that great with him and have never been that great with his mom, so that's like a big no-no. But while they're trying to find a place for him to stay without him having to go into the system right away, he basically tells them, hey, my friend lives a couple blocks down, I can go stay with them. The family takes him in and he's living with them for a few months. And he knows that in the summertime, these people go on this summer vacation to this summer home. And he's almost like, what's going to happen to me? And the story develops from there. I was just about to sit here and tell you the whole entire book from beginning to end. I just loved it. It was just a gripping story, and it just all the challenges that he went through in his life, from the minute that he went to the museum and he runs into this picture, into the Goldfinch, and it's his mom's favorite picture. And it's just from there, and it's a coming of age story into adulthood. And just everything that he goes through, the back and forth, the not having a home, the not belonging anywhere. I didn't know if I was going to be able to handle a book this big, especially in times right now where you just want something light and fluffy or something fantastical to sort of take your mind off of trouble. And this is all about trouble and just life in itself. I am so eager to read The Secret Society by her. It's a smaller book, but I just really fell in love with her art of storytelling and with her writing. It's just amazing. 5 stars all the way. So that's it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read for the month of March. I really enjoyed the books this month. They each one of them gave me something different, and I love each and every one of them for that reason. I mean, even the Sundown Motel, which was my lowest rating, that it gave me entertainment, so I can't complain about it. Let me know down below all the books that you read for the month of March. Which was your favorite? Which was your least favorite? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!